Welcome back to the Better Learning Podcast. I'm your co-host. I'm joined with Kevin, our original host.
Hey, Carla.
Hey, Kevin, how's it going?
I am good.
Good. We're also joined by Brian Proctor, so Associate and Principal of Education from Ratio Design, based in, gosh, is it Fishers, Indiana, or am I making that up? Is that in my head?
No, that's correct. Fishers, Indiana, right north of
Great.
Indianapolis.
Perfect. So we're excited to dive into the movie today that we're highlighting is on Wonder, right? You picked this, Brian. We'll find out why, but ultimately, it's a story based on a book about a kid named Auggie Pullman with facial differentials, I think is what they referred to it as several times in the movie.
My name is Auggie Pullman.
If they stare, let them stare.
You're the toughest kid in that school.
I know you don't always like it, but I love it. It's my son's face.
You are not ugly, Auggie.
You just say that because you're my mom.
Because I'm your mom, it counts the most, because I know you the most.
We all deserve a standing ovation, at least once in our lives. My friends do. My teachers do. My sister does for always being there for me. My dad does for always making us laugh. And my mom does the most for never giving up on anything, especially me.
Why'd you pick Wonder? What resonates with you on?
Yeah, so I had the joy of leading in school for 25 years. Joined the architect firm 2 years ago, but as someone that walked the hallways, inspired by what happens in the hallways within the classrooms, it was a belief in culture, but culture has to be created with the sense of belonging, identity, and purpose. And so when I really, when I've presented recently or had conversations with districts that we're working with, I always go back to how do kids feel in that space? And so there's a lot of pieces with inside this movie. Obviously, middle school. Middle school is just weird in general. But
The worst.
how kids, yeah, how kids transition in that space and just friends, and then add on top of it Augie's condition. But it's not just Auggie. There's other characters with inside this movie that if you really investigate or explore, it's about finding a sense of belonging in the school or the environment that you're in.
Well, I think too, the other thing that I noticed in it was family dynamics are highlighted a lot in this, right? You have the dynamics of the sister and the friend. Gosh, I can't remember what her name, but the sister's friend and how inclusive her family was of this girl, but the difference in when you go to camp and come back, your friends aren't necessarily always the same summer after summer. But I thought it was interesting the way that they let up each character in this and highlighted the reason why that character is specifically where they are. Well, so we go through this. We go through some of these awards. Do you want to dive right into it?
I'm
Yeah,
good
let's
with
go
that. I
for it.
mean, yeah, I just like this movie. It's a good cast. It's just like a good, heartfelt movie. It's a good one.
Well, I told Kevin before you
I,
got
you,
on,
you,
Brian, I was like, way to go for Brian making me cry yesterday. So thank you. There were so many
well,
moments in it.
yeah, and originally, like I was sitting there thinking sports teams. Like I'm like, let's think of some, they're all taken. Obviously, I'm Hoosier country, but we often look at some of these movies and they come out and they just kind of go to the wayside. And then when you pull them back and you watch them a second time, you see different things the second time that you might have missed, like the whole, premise of all these characters and their interactions with each other. And so as I watched it again, I was like, man, I don't remember that. I don't remember how powerful even the principal's speech was at the end of the school year. And it resonated with me as being a former principal, the role that we take in terms of like, you don't have to be loud to be a great leader. You have to find ways of bringing up students and parents and staff and creating this little micro ecosystem of just of people working together and supporting each other. And so like I connected as a teacher, but I connected as a leader, and I connected as a parent. But I even connected as just like seeing the day-to-day of just kids that come through with just different identities, and trying to find ways to make sure that they belonged always in the space that I worked in.
And we hit a little bit. What I really like too is just the different perspectives. Typically in a movie, you'll just get it from like the main character's perspective, and especially viewing that, with the education space of like really putting yourself in that situation of what someone else is going through. I mean, The Sisters was like a great one. Just, you think, oh, this kid's had to deal with this his whole life, but it's really the whole family, everyone around, and their whole life doesn't always have to revolve around that situation too. They have, everything
Right.
else that they're dealing with friends and, everything else that happens in life. So,
Well, and I think each and every one of them,
Well,
right? Oh, go ahead, Brian. What were you going to say?
I just gotta say, Olivia,
mhm.
she felt invisible. So like when you see her constantly watching from the distance of whatever is happening with her brother, she's felt invisible. And even at school, she's trying to create that sense of identity and belonging. And obviously, it comes to fruition with the culmination of the play. And losing a friend in that process is just friend goes off to summer camp, she loses her identity, she's felt invisible in the entire piece. And that's true of the kid that's the happiest kid. Even Julian and Jack and all these kids that are part of it, they have an identity that they're trying to make who they are, but in the process they're behind the scenes, they're invisible, they don't know how to create what's next. And so like I said, this movie pulls at the heartstrings quite a bit.
Yeah, it for sure pulled at mine, definitely. And I was going to say, Brian, you closed off my statement is I think the biggest theme throughout this, and no matter what the character was, but it was, I think all of them wanted to be seen, even from the dad to the mom, right? Like,
Mhm.
Julia Roberts, her character had given up everything in order to take care of Augie, but she had failed to be seen as, something other than that mom with a special needs kid who is homeschooling and sort of in this silo and independent of everything else. So, okay, so first award, which Kevin, I think you're better at breaking these down, is the John Keating Award. I had Mr. Brown.
Yeah, yeah. Most impactful
Yeah,
educator or mentor in here.
mentor.
Yeah.
Brian, do you have any at the
Uh,
top of your list?
yeah. Well, I'm going to say it's this soft spoken but powerful kind of leader. I'm going to go back to Mr. Tushman, the principal. His speech talking about greatness lies in not being strong. He says that at the very end in terms of just like it captures the whole essence of what we do in terms of character education. But he leads by setting this tone, like not just rules. Like it's not just always the rules, but there's so many stories that he pulls into it, and he's patient and he's quiet in that process. And like I said, he even said, like when the choice is given between right or being kind, always choose kind. And I mean, those are principles of just, you don't have to be the leader that's in the office with the badge on and you're the principal. That's the wrong type of leader. Like the leader is the one out in the hallways, is the one with embedded with inside you. It's working the situation and not just always like the rules. It's about creating that character education. So I say Mr. Tushman, the principal.
So I thought Mr. Tishman too, but I also think one of his speech at the end was great. But even, his ability when Augie was going into the school to do the tour and to make him feel comfortable. And the biggest, was it Julian was the bully? What was his name?
Yeah, Julian.
Yeah,
Mhm.
when Julian's
Julian.
parents were sitting in the office and, every parent is sitting there is like, that's not my kid, that's some other kid. And the mom was a jerk, right? And the husband was sitting there like, oh God, I'm
Mhm.
married to this woman, right? But everything he even said in that meeting sort of resonated of like, he is that leader for sure. So I think him. Yeah.
Mhm.
Totally agree. Yeah, I tried to like think of like was the teacher like the main teacher in there? I'm like, no, like Mr. Tushman just stole the show. I mean, you hit it all. Like just really just hitting like the values of just like lean into your values, and make your decisions based off of that. So totally agree.
So I have like a little challenge on that. What do you guys think of Owen Wilson? He
Ah.
was very, very understated in it. And I think the biggest scene where I realized his character, and mind you, Brian, I just watched this for the first time yesterday. I had not seen this movie before. But in the end, where Augie was like, something about his helmet, right? He wore that space helmet everywhere. And he's like, it's in my office. And was like, what? Does mom know? And he's like, heck no, your mom doesn't know. She would kill me if she knew I stole it. But he goes on to explain the reason why he did it, and the fact that he loves, even though Augie doesn't always love his face, that he loves his face. And the way he approached his wife, the way he approached his daughter, the way he approached the daughter's friends. I think he was probably that silent character behind the scenes that you don't necessarily, he wasn't that strong character, buildup of character.
I'd agree.
Yeah,
I didn't process them that way, but yeah, I mean, like now that I hear you say it, it processes that way with me.
Yeah, and he was subtle, but it just kind of was what it was. Well, the other one, the next category is clicks, right? Like what sort of stereotypical clicks were involved? And obviously middle school, right? We don't have the high school clicks, but you kind of did in this with Olivia, you know, the oh gosh, what is it? Drama
yeah,
club and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing, and then that new experience. But then with Augie, you had a couple of different ones, you know, when they were at the camp and they were, you know, in the fight, things like that. The older kids, the jockier kids, and then, but does it fit within those stereotypes and the cliques?
yeah. That to me, it's the lunchroom scene is like where all the clicks happen. You know, it's like in the classroom. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's some adult intervention in there, but once you get into in like that's where that's where everything really starts coming out in the lunchroom. So you start seeing kind of the bullying and the dynamics of, you know, who's hanging out with who and who's yeah, influencing, you know, like the cool kids. So to me, that was like the scene that just pulled in like all those clicks that were like just defined in that cafeteria. I don't know, Brian, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say consistently. I mean, like you saw the progression of, you know, how Augie became a popular, as we call him in the middle school, or you had the sporty kids and you had the science geeks, and he was known as the science geek because he knew like all the answers. But you know, seeing the cafeteria repeat over and over in terms of, you know, the first student that came over with Summer, you know, she wasn't going to get cooties or whatever it was. You know, so it was like, don't touch him because you'd get this. And she made a stance in terms of like, that's not going to happen. And so, yeah, you see that in middle school cafeteria hallways, those spaces that he would often refer to as the large settings. You're the most vulnerable. You don't have the supervision around. You don't. Kids are rude and they're ruthless. And so the cafeteria is one that I was really thinking of as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think, you know, you had the bullies, the one kid, Julian, who was on the tour. And it was funny because he identified them by their shoes. I kind of laughed. He was like, this is the trust fund kid, this is the hand-me-down kid. And then he looked at the girl's shoes and he was like, oh hell, this is I don't remember what he said about her, but I'm like, his shoes pretty much described it. He did a good job breaking those down.
Smart kid.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
quick side story on the bully. Have you guys heard? I was just asking Carla the movie Whitebird. Brian, are you familiar with that? That's a more recent movie. It's come
I
out
haven't heard
last
that.
year.
No.
So it's actually it brings in the character Julian. So like the bully that gets kicked out of school, they actually created a whole other movie that came out that is more about him and then like kind of his background and his grandmother's story, and it's fascinating,
Oh,
especially since you were just in Europe. It's mostly in
check it
France.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a really good movie. But I thought it was interesting. I'm like, what a weird like kind of they've kind of like had this extension into another movie, pulling back from the characters in Wonder.
Yeah. And I didn't even know, but that would be a good one to watch too. Well, do we feel like there was a homecoming scene, right? So the breakdown on like that iconic classroom moment, a school dance or pep rally or something that made the scene impactful. I think there were several in here, but
I would say, yeah. I mean, like, you know, when they went camping and then the fight in the woods and then those other known big guys, whatever, stood up for him. I mean, I think that was a big shift. The graduation finale as well, leading up to him being selected. So there's several that just kind of peaked at the very end. You knew that this was going to have a most likely a happy ending or some ending that led to a crescendo, but you really didn't expect what would take place at the turn of events. But yeah, I'd say the homecoming scene was that class trip, fight in the woods.
Yep, I had
Kind
that
of
too.
changed the whole direction of the movie.
Yeah.
I know. And I loved it when he walked out, he was like, I was in a fight. And Owen Wilson was like, did you win? Like a normal dad, right? Like that would what it be. So do you think that it captured or exaggerated real school life? Like you would probably know better.
Yes, it captured real school life, but we work so hard to teach kids that, like, you know, snitches get stitches type of thing is like real. And so you hear kids in fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, like you just don't, the proverbial thing is not to say a word. But you'd see kids often rise to the level of like bullying. But I mean, like there's so many pieces on this. Like this is bullying on the book, and then it's not even going as deep as like how bullying today on social media. I mean, like kids experience so much, even at such the youngest age, that kids that rise up, they know right from wrong, are often silenced, but it does happen, and you see it happen, and you're proud of when it does happen.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I think that this one, there were so many one-liners or something in the dialogue that really, I think I probably had 12 written down, right? But is there a quote from it that stood the test of time? I think the "be kind" quote, is obviously by Mr. Brown, but are there other ones?
Yeah,
I think the one you're talking about is when
I
I had two, but I want to hear yours, Brian. Let's.
I had the one that said you can't blend in when you're born to stand out.
That was one of mine.
That was one of mine.
Yeah, that applies to everyone. And I obviously I like that one about always choose kind. Yeah, those two right there.
All right, you hit mine too. When given the choice between being right or being kind, choose kind. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I thought Charlotte
There's a
had
lot more though.
Oh, there were 10. So I had two. It's not enough to be friendly. You have to be a friend. Yeah, that was. And then two, your deeds are your monuments. That was Dr. Brown or Mr. Brown. Well, I don't know why I keep calling him Dr. Brown. He was an interesting character though, too. Yeah. So the iPhone effect. How would wonder change in a TikTok post? Or not TikTok, but just like with
This is an interesting one. Do you I could see it going two ways, right? Like I could actually see like a ton of support and really like almost like accelerating kind of this story arc that happened in there. Like I could see that happening on social media too, where he gets like more support early on, but I could also see it going the way where it's like a lot of bullying, a lot of all those videos and things get circulated, from that first day of school. I don't know, Brian. Brian, what are your thoughts on this? Because you saw the progression when you were a principal, right?
There's a genuine component when people are face to face. I don't think people on social media are always the most genuine because they can come out and portray themselves to be in support or supporting him, but it's not genuine. I really think that the iPhone effect creates this false reality of likes and dislikes. So it just has such a negative effect. We like to see all the positive comments, but are those individuals going to say the same thing in front of the whole group face to face? And that's what I always come down to. Like it's your actions right here, right now, in the moment, not behind a filter or an iPhone that you support Auggie. So do it at school when you're right there, when everyone's standing in front of you.
Yeah, I would assume because I think it was a rare genetic condition, right, that this boy had. So I would imagine that the iPhone effect now in 2017 wasn't all that long ago. I know it feels like a long time ago, but realistically it wasn't. I think I have things on my Instagram from 2017. So would it have gone viral? Would Augie's, condition being so rare, what would his mom would she have leaned on for support, that type of thing? And I would imagine, that if she did, then it would have been a viral story and he would have been perceived a little bit differently walking into school.
When we work with schools at K-12, it's not just about furniture or design, it's about impact. Our radically student-centered approach puts students at the center of every decision. From that first conversation to the final walkthrough, we're focused on creating spaces that actually work for the kids, the teachers, and the community. So if you're looking to do more than just check a box on your next project, let's talk. Visit K12.com, that's KAY-TWELVE.com, and see how we're helping schools transform learning one student at a time. Because at K-12, it's not just about projects and furniture, it's about purpose.
One of the things that I did love was the cast of characters, right? But as you went through it, would you recast anyone in this, or would they all be the same?
I liked the character components that were there. I mean, I didn't depict Owen Wilson in the light that you did until you said it. Could someone be different than Mr. Tushman? I mean, would you put it in there? Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks.
I
I don't know. Would
thought of
Tom
that
Hanks
too.
be a
Yeah.
great principal? That warm authority. I think you could always find someone, for Augie. It's a matter of maybe Augie's personality would have came out differently if he had different facial differences. Who knows? But I think they did a great job of casting from the book. Obviously, the book was spot on. Obviously, creating a movie off the book was a great connection. But I thought they did a
Yeah,
nice
so
job.
it's funny. So V or Olivia, I thought, oh my gosh, Katie Holmes. All of a sudden, like a younger Katie Holmes is what she looked like to me if
Uh,
she were a little bit older. It's all that I saw every time she came on, especially when her hair was back. And I thought about the substitute component to our conversation. But even that, knowing how old Katie Holmes is, I think that they depicted him really well. I just wonder, like, where did they go? What other movies has Augie been in, or V, or any of these other people? Because most of them weren't super well-known actors, right?
Especially,
Oh,
well, the kids.
yeah.
Yeah.
Owen Wilson was, I mean, obviously Julia Roberts, but I can't think of any of the other ones that were bigger name celebrities.
Yeah. I
mm,
felt like they were very like almost overcasted for the parents, right? Like Owen Wilson and Julia Roberts are like big. Like, I mean,
They
they
play,
didn't have like the major roles. They had supporting roles in it. So I liked both of them. I thought they were both great, but I felt like it was like you almost like didn't really need those names on there, but it definitely, I'm sure it helped promote the movie. But
yeah,
Owen,
it
I thought
did.
Owen Wilson was great, and I thought Julia Roberts was totally underplayed. They could have put someone else in there. Just the character just didn't get as much play as you would expect with Julia Roberts
Mhm. It
headline.
wasn't her stepmom role or something like
Uh,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
The Hags, right? Have a great summer. What would the long-term legacy of Wonder be if we were putting him in the yearbooks? If we were signing his yearbook, what would it be?
It would be that choose kind.
She was kind. Yep.
Yeah.
That's a
I mean,
great
if
one. I
you're
hope that
writing it in
actually
this,
like happens.
No, do you know what's funny? So,
yeah.
when we were watching this, Joey, so I have a 20-year-old son. Well, he's about to be 20, but he came in and he said, that my school did a choose kind based on that movie. And I
Mhm.
was like, I have
Really?
I had no idea. But he said it was a whole year that was their school theme.
Mhm.
Basically, it was to choose kind when Wonder had come out, and he was in middle school at that time. So I did think that that was interesting and wondered if there were any other schools that maybe adopted that. I was going to Google it last night, but never got around to it. So I thought that was interesting that he had said that that movie impacted, our district here in that way.
Yeah, we had seen some teachers use it for embracing inclusion. Obviously, there's big push. There has always been a big push in terms of what does inclusive education look like. It's the same thing when we're looking at the design side now. Is like inclusion is accepting of all. We talk about some people have an IEP or some people have a walking apparatus, but when it comes down to it, it's that inclusive component of we should be embracing everyone regardless of who they are, and choosing kind is one component where we help individuals understand that that's a catapult to belonging in the space that they're in, from school life to work life to your community. And so it's cliched to some people, but when it comes down to it, there are going to be people that you don't like. There are going to be people that have different shoes that he noticed right off the bat. There are going to be people that have different face abnormalities or whatever differences, but you can still be kind to everyone.
Well, where do we think they are now? 7 years later or 8 years later? What would that be? 8 years later? Where are they?
Yeah, I mean, Augie, so what? They should be done with high school at this point, right?
Well,
Maybe even done
so
with
I did think
college.
it,
I
I
mean,
did think it was weird. Wasn't he in fifth grade? I was going
Uh,
to go back and check that because I was like, what middle school starts in
yeah,
fifth
it
grade?
was. Yeah, actually, it was. Yeah, he
It
was
was
going into
fifth
fifth
grade.
grade. Yeah, it did feel like they were a little older than fifth grade.
They seemed older, but it could just be maturity. But I mean, obviously high school, right? V's in college.
I think V's doing theater. I think that
Yeah,
catapulted her theater piece. Julian's a hard one. Is he really doing some like the anti-bullying stuff the lesson that he went through and he in the movie did it launch him into like really being against bullying, like who knows? And then you look at Augie, science. If he's in college, if he's not in college, he's doing something STEM based with science. Definitely. Obviously, that's been was his niche then. And I think but Jack, who knows what Jack, I mean, maybe Jack's a counselor. Maybe he's an advocate.
I
Maybe
can see
he's
that. Yeah. I feel like he had some type of role where he's helping other people, whether it's a coach, teacher, or something. Yeah, some aspect like that.
Well, I think Jack had the biggest lesson, not really the biggest lesson in this, but he had a massive lesson that, words have impact and meaning, and we don't always realize like what we say and how it impacts other people and what they walk away with. And so that impact to Augie, I thought that I thought he would be in education, an educator, because he really too leaning into that. I wondered if he had some academic struggles, especially in science, when, Augie had moved his little paper over and allowed him to cheat. And so if he had some learning deficiencies or something, I didn't know because they didn't talk about it. And I don't even think that his character was really covered in it a whole lot. I don't remember them doing the backstory on him. Well, I know, Brian, that Kevin does like to do a battle of the bands on this one. And the soundtrack was like pretty subtle and emotional. And I'm not awesome with music, so I'm going to rely on y'all. And I'm going to hope and pray that y'all are. But were there songs that hit hard or music that was in it that hit hard? And then how did the music shape the movie's tone?
Oh my gosh. I didn't even pay attention to the sounds in
I didn't either.
Usually there is something that stands out in music.
There really wasn't.
There really wasn't. It was a lot of more just kind of like transition, like kind of composition background one. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was even like any like actual songs in there.
I meant to Google it or to put it in something and figure it out, but I didn't think. Then that makes that category pretty dang easy, right? And I didn't have to highlight that I have no musical connectivity to any of these things, not for the most part. Well, I guess, Brian, before we wrap it up, obviously, like you shared how Wonder connects back to your work academically, but looking at it with where you are now, you've obviously changed seats within the last couple of years. And so what professionally do you have going on? Are you busy? Are you like, what's life like? What's happening?
Yeah. So my role at Ratio, I am a connector in the business development side in Indiana, but on a firm wide, I work on K-12 projects across all of our studios. So whenever we have K-12 projects, I'm not an architect, but I'm a learning design architect. I come in with the voice to connect with the school district and the design team to really look at ways that we can stretch and elevate what we do on a personal level, on a human experience level, to ensure that what we're creating, this vision based on what the school wants, that we're including all aspects of that environment, not just pumping out a space or renovating a space, but it has meaning and purpose behind it. So I do get to travel.
I mean, it's such the missing piece that we always say in our industry. It's like being able to take those learning environments and connect it back into the educators and making sure that, like those spaces are utilized in a way that, it's not just the architect or like people in our industry and furniture saying this is how you should use it. It is really taken more from the educator viewpoint. So I loved that when you made the announcement of you switching to that role and, coming, we've known each other for a while now, like back from when you were a principal to, to moving into this role.
Oh, you knew Brian when he was a principal?
Yeah, we've gone back a while here. Yep. What's been the surprises for you? Like obviously there's a big, like just change, going from, going to a school every day and now taking it from a different lens, but anything that surprised you over the last few years that you didn't think about?
I've shared belonging often. That was, like I said at the very beginning, it's not a program. It's not a design piece that we put inside there. But when I get a chance to work with schools and the architect team, I think what surprises me the most is that sometimes the purpose that we find in what we're doing is in the quiet moments. And in the world that we're in today, even on the architect side or the school side, everything goes 100 miles an hour. And so to get a pause in there, to just stop and really reflect and find that quiet moment seems harder today because I'm trying to navigate what the school needs to have done by yesterday and what the architect needs to have done by tomorrow, and blending those two pieces together to make sure that when it's all said and done, we still have to go back to, in that quiet moment, who is it for and why are we doing it? And what's the purpose behind what we're doing? And that piece is the hardest thing to embed in both those tracks that are happening at the same time.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us, sharing Wonder. I mean, it was a great first time, watch for me. So I definitely appreciate it. And to our listeners, if this episode moved you, made you reflect, or reminded you of someone in your life, we'd love to hear about it. So head over to thebetterlearningpodcast.com to share your comments on your favorite school theme movies, or even on this episode as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, nice seeing you. Well, I'll see you again soon, so don't worry about that.
That's right.
Yeah, you will.
The Better Learning Podcast is produced by Matt Rogers and edited by Kelly Jones. The views and opinions shared on this podcast are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily represent the perspectives of their affiliated companies, organizations, or associations.